Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Xaereth Prevails, an alternate accounts story. Before we dig in, I wanted to point out that I did skip matches 7 through 9 on my alt account in terms of doing a video for them, not because I wanted to not show my failure, and I did fail, and I'll get to that in a minute, but because I have limited amounts of time to be able to make videos, and the new Grand Arena is coming up pretty soon. I frankly didn't have time to make 2 videos, so I am going forward with the final segment of these matches, mostly because my play is a lot better and I played a lot more interestedly. There's a lot more interesting matchups in this one, and whereas I know that everyone loves to watch me fail and have the opportunity to feel superior to me, I just wanted to be able to show my best play in this case, because I'm trying to show people how to play well, not how to get lazy and fail with Commander Luke against Jedi Knight Revan because I couldn't be bothered to put smoke on R2-D2. I wanted to do the flamer thing so that I could get more turn meter, which totally backfired. So that's why we're only doing these matches. That said, my loss was only my second loss ever with my alt, and I wanted to make sure that I wasn't going to let that happen again. And as you can see, hopefully I did make a Rhodium League despite my failure. I haven't made Kyber yet, but I was hoping that I would be able to make Kyber after this match. And my opponent in this match did not have very inspired defenses. In fact, they were extremely lacking in a lot of ways. But despite that, I wanted to be pretty careful and make sure that I chose the right teams to counter the right squads. And so you can see here, I had selected my Jedi team. I wanted to just go back out and reevaluate for a minute, and I don't really know why I haven't cut this part out of the video, but you guys get to watch it anyways because it's too late. And against bounty hunters, I did decide to go with an undersized squad. I got the undersized feat for this account a lot easier in Division 7 for whatever reason, probably because I was soloing entire squads with Ezra and stuff, and that doesn't necessarily work even at this slightly elevated point. And I did want to try to go for the final feat. I was not necessarily going to be able to do that just because we don't have as many opportunities for that at this level, and I had kind of been slacking, as I mentioned before, in my last round, and I had barely gotten any extra undersized wins. So in this case, I thought that I could at least get an undersized win here. The awesome thing about having Bastila is, as the lead, is you have a ton of extra protection, and so I thought maybe I could even get ahead in banners. And even if you don't necessarily get ahead in banners, you want to maximize your banners. One thing that I have been kind of lax in for this particular account is I have not been trying to get maximum banners. I've just been considering a win as good enough, and that's not necessarily a winning mentality. At the higher levels, like, you absolutely need that margin of victory. It's not enough to just say, well, I'm going to win all my matches with one hit. It's like you have to win all your matches with max banners as much as you can, because inevitably you're going to fail on something. Even if you don't fail the entire attack, one of your guys is going to die, they're going to lose protection, God forbid, and you need to make sure that you have that kind of buffer. And frankly, even at the 5 million mark where I'm at, every once in a while I'll use Bastila as lead just so that I don't have to worry about losing my protection if I want to get a maximum banner score, with the undersized guys. Now, I took Ewoks here against this weak Phoenix squad, and I decided that I was not going to undersize this attack just because I wasn't sure how Ewoks would do against Phoenix. Phoenix are really great at regenerating their health after every hit, and frankly, I wanted to make sure that the Ewoks, who do not do a lot of damage per hit, were able to actually chew through them. Even though they're relatively weakly geared, I wanted to make sure that I got the win. Getting a win is always going to be more important than getting like an undersized win or getting a feat that works out for you. It just is. And so I'm sending the Ewoks here. I was pretty sure I was going to win, but I don't think at any point on any account I've used Ewoks against Phoenix. So it's just good to kind of feel that out. One function of having an alt is that I don't necessarily want to spend a huge amount of time plotting and planning my attacks, and this was no exception. I don't want to spend a huge amount of time doing research on my attacks and everything. I just kind of sit down and make them, whether it's a good decision or not, and that's worked for me so far. I don't anticipate that I'm going to end up spending a huge amount of time planning for my alt unless something changes. Alright, so you can see that my opponent had a pretty weak backline, and so I decided to use Commander Luke here on this squad. Nest with Kira is hard at any level, and I wanted to make sure that I could beat them. Now, you'll see that I didn't take C-3PO, and that is because I thought I could probably chew through Nest's health okay, but I needed to make sure that I wouldn't get into an endless loop of just taking her turn meter down farther and farther, and that happens when you have C-3PO. You get so many debuffs going on that you can just completely get crushed in terms of she never gets a turn, but she has 1,000,000 protection, and you just keep reducing her turn meter. She has tenacity down, so she never resists it. You just keep pushing it down, and you time out over time. So that wasn't really something I was anticipating with this particular nest. They weren't a very strong nest, frankly, but I decided not to take 3PO, and it was coincidentally a great opportunity to get an undersized win as well. So Commander Luke is a little bit overkill against Kira, but I didn't really have any other teams that could consistently beat Nest, and so that's something I'm actually going to have to consider moving forward, is how am I going to be able to deal with Nest, because people are going to start having her geared. I mean, I have her mostly farmed and geared at gear 8 right now, and I have plans to make her stronger to elevate her just to trip opponents up in the future, so that's something to look forward to. Here we have my gear 8 Night Sisters against this a little bit higher geared Karth Old Republic team. It's actually kind of just a hodgepodge. Spirit is hanging out there with them. Juhani is there, and she's not really anything to think about or consider, but there was also Wampa, who I wanted to take out right away. And once you get to the back lines in the 1.8, 1.9 level, you'll start running out of teams if you put any kind of good defense on. And one thing that I do want to point out is that my opponent had very clearly saved almost all of their good teams for offense. They had a decent bounty hunter team, and that S team wasn't really that high gear. It's just annoying to try to take out, and so they were clearly trying to beat me on offense, and I needed to get as many banners as possible in this case. So I needed to get the highest score possible, and getting undersized wins is good, but also just using a full squad of gear 8 Night Sisters is probably going to be the right choice instead of trying to undersize and potentially losing, because if I lost and didn't kill anyone, I would be pretty hard pressed to find another squad that was going to be able to deal with that. Now you can see here I thought for a while about undersizing this attack, and the rebels are just not very strong. They have a few of the iconic rebels, I guess you'd call them, like the ones that are a little well known just because they you have to have them to unlock Commander Luke and all that. Akbar, you need him for his ship. You need Biggs for his ship, and so we're just going in with undersize anyways because they were all pretty poorly geared, and I was starting to think this was maybe a mistake because they were starting to do some damage, they were starting to taunt, and I don't necessarily have a huge amount of staying force, but I had more than this awful team, frankly, and so I was able to get 58 banners. I'd only in total dropped like 6 banners against my opponent, if we count 60 banners as perfect. And so I was pretty confident going into this. Like, I have a Gear 13 General Grievous squad that is going to be really hard to get any banners off. Even if you can clear, he's going to probably take his toll. And as you can see in the screenshot, they didn't end up clearing Grievous. They spent a couple battles on my Palpatine team. They destroyed the Vosk team, which is whatever, and then the weak droid team with strong Grievous panned out. So I ended up winning that match pretty handily, and going into this next match, I was playing for Kyber. If one of us was able to do even marginally well, we'd be able to get into Kyber. And by either of us, I of course just meant myself, because my opponent had nowhere near enough banners to get into Kyber, even if they won this. And even though they're in a Rhodium League, it still can be kind of a mile away trying to get into Kyber. So they had a little bit better defenses this time, but frankly, like, they didn't have anything too crazy. And I wanted to use my Ewok squad here because Ewoks are fantastic against First Order in as long as you have a reasonable level of gear. And at this point, all of my Ewoks were at Gear 11, and Gear 11 is obviously not like a paragon of success for Ewoks, but it's pretty good at this level. Like, that's basically all you need. I'm probably going to stop there for a little bit, or at least maybe just like put one of the Ewoks up to Gear 12 every month or something like that. That's what I did in my main account. It didn't feel so painful, even though it did feel a little bit painful because it's gearing Ewoks. But you can definitely beat the First Order team with Ewoks. The thing you really have to be careful about is being able to take down Kylo and the other Kylo also. Like, both of the Kylos are really hard to kill for Ewoks, and you know, I've killed like the entire First Order team before and just had the two Kylos, or just one of them, survive for like 4 minutes and barely finish them off in time. You know, and other people do actually time out with Ewoks against them. Just not me, because I'm apparently fantastic at using Ewoks. So I decided to undersize this attack with Commander Luke and his posse. You'll see that I didn't take R2 this time. R2 is actually the inferior choice between 3PO and R2, if you have to choose between the two, except when you're trying to counter Nest. That's about the only reason. Or I guess against First Order as well. If you're going to do that, you don't want 3PO. Otherwise, 3PO is absolutely fantastic against Bastila, because Bastila gives her team really high tenacity, which means she resists a lot, which means every time you resist, your entire Rebel team is getting a huge amount of turn meter. And so you can watch that. I barely let them take any turns, and what turns they didn't do much. And I was able to get on through just by virtue of Commander Luke being an extremely hard counter to Bastila. So one thing I wanted to point out here too is my opponent had two pretty strong teams in the front, and one of them was Emperor Palpatine, the other one was the Bastila squad that you just watched me counter. And I decided that I was going to take out the Bastila squad for sure. CLS would beat either one of these squads without any kind of problem. There wasn't really any way for me to be able to guarantee any kind of a win otherwise. And so I decided that I would gamble. I would take out the squad that was in the first zone, at the big zone, I should say, the zone with two squads in it. I would guarantee take that zone down so that I could get that squad cleared, and then hopefully be able to clear the back zone as well behind it, because you get more banners that way than trying to clear the two single team zones. And so I decided to take CLS against Bastila, and I don't regret it. That's the right move. And you absolutely do want to make sure that you're getting the most points possible. So that's what I did. I took Jedi Revan as the lead there just because I wanted to get some extra speed. I figured if I could get enough speed, I might be able to take out Bastila, but that clearly didn't work, and I lost. And I didn't really have another team that could even dream about countering that, so I decided to focus all of my attention on the back zone, which is reasonably geared for this level Phoenix squad, and I really didn't have a lot of teams that could deal with that either. But Night Sisters at Gear 8 still have a pretty good punch in terms of offense, and I just decided to go for it. They've been kind of my go-to B team or C team, even really at this point. Like, I don't really consider Night Sisters to be a B team or a C team, but I do consider them to, at this level, at the, you know, Gear 8 level, to be a B or C team. They do have some pretty decent offense, though. Even though you can't get max banners with them ever, they still do some good. So I was able to nuke Sabine right away. She's got by far the fewest hit points on the team. And then I just decided to focus Chopper down, because between Chopper and Kanan, if they kept on just taunting and making themselves annoying, I could potentially time out. They could even do something that was unexpected against me, like kill one of my Night Sisters a couple times. I don't know. Like, it was pretty unlikely that I was going to actually lose to getting my characters killed in this match, if we're being honest, but I was afraid that I might time out, and Chopper and Kanan do a great job of kind of tag taming that. And so here I got tired of trying to take out anyone else. Kanan is the one who provides the counters, and so if we can just take out Kanan first, then the rest of the team just kind of folds. And usually that's kind of a poor strategy. Kanan is not the best target to usually target. You want to take out the squishy people like Hera and Sabine and Ezra first. And I did a little of that, but my opponent's squads were not optimized. Their mods weren't good. I just decided to take out Kanan first. I don't know if that was actually wise in this circumstance, but it did work, so I'm good with it. When I finished my attack, I was greeted with an image of getting into Kyber League, and here are the awesome Division 6 Kyber rewards. You get some Zetas and Omegas, and everything else sucks. But my opponent was able to take out a few of my squads. They weren't able to full clear both of my zones, and so I was able to win by a pretty small margin. Like, I was happy that I had focused and prioritized the big zone with the squad behind it, or the zone behind it, as opposed to taking out the Palpatine team. Even though it's more satisfying maybe to take out that Palpatine team, it's absolutely not as rewarding, because I was able to get the win here. So moving on into the finals, I was in Kyber. None of my other opponents were in Kyber yet, at least, and I needed to make sure I took this match seriously. So when I got in, one of the very rare things that happened to me was my opponent actually had attacked, and for my ult, for whatever reason, like, people don't attack until really close to the wire. I'd always just attack at night, because that's the only time I really have available to do it. But they had cleared my two smaller zones back to back, and they had a really strong Grievous squad. Like, this Grievous was Relic 7, which is so ridiculous it had at this level. Like, I thought that my Gear 13 Relic 1 was obnoxious, but my opponent had just the craziest teams. So I decided that he had 150 health, and Grievous, like, that's a huge amount of health for Grievous at any level, even at end game level. Like, that is obnoxious. And so I thought I could probably two-shot Grievous if I used my Jedi Revan Bastila team to take out his support. I managed to take out almost all of them, and then I decided, well, this is really the true threat. I need to make sure that I just go for him. So I took the full Commander Luke squad. There was no real hope of me getting the undersized win achievement, and so or feat. So I decided I would just go with my big group, because if I left someone out, then they inevitably just probably wouldn't be used, because my teams are pretty fine-tuned to having specific 5-man teams. And really, I mean, even at the highest level, my Gear 12 Commander Luke team just pummeled the Grievous squad down, or just Grievous himself and Newt, I guess. But I was able to get the win, which is fantastic result, obviously. And I've been facing a lot of Phoenix squads lately, and so I decided that I was actually wanting to take Ewoks here, but I had to put them on defense because I had General Grievous on offense, because there was a feat that if you get a win with Grievous, then you're able to get some cool stuff, I guess. I don't know. I decided I'd just go for it regardless. Plus, it's just such a fun thing to be able to use Grievous on offense. So that's what I did. I took Grievous, I put Ewoks down as his replacement, and Ewoks are clearly an inferior defensive team, but I don't know, I also wanted to get the full clear. In the end, I think I've been going a little bit too heavy on defense for my alt, and trying to get a little more offense and making sure that I can full clear my opponents is going to start being more of a priority for me, because that's how it works in the Division 1 matches. And even though not everything translates from Division 1 all the way down to Division 6, a lot of the same principles apply. Like you still need to get as many points as you can. I didn't make Kyber until a full match and a half later this time, because I wasn't full clearing all of my opponents and missing out on all of those zone bonuses and everything really adds up over time. And so you can see my Phoenix, or their Phoenix rather. I wouldn't own that Phoenix team. They're going down slowly. This was a better geared and better modded Phoenix team. I mean, this is the finals. You're going to get the best opponent, hopefully, in the group. And really, I was so surprised. I got 59 banners there. That means that they only ever took down Zombie. Zombie was the only one who they hurt at all. The rest of them were just completely ignored, and I guess I just maintained that taunt the whole time. And Phoenix don't have any AoEs except for Sabine, so if you take Sabine out early, or in this case they didn't have Sabine, I guess the rest of the Night Sisters have a decent chance at just kind of going unscathed. So I guess Night Sisters at Gear 8 are kind of a decent option here. I don't know. I decided that my opponents, well geared, well modded, and reasonably strong Ewoks at this level would be a good target for my Grievous team, because I needed to win the match. I didn't want to just like only do a little bit of damage to it or whatever, and this was totally overkill. I could probably have gone without using Newt or whatever, but I wasn't going to get the undersize feat anyways, so I just decided to go full bore and make sure I was going to win. And my opponent had weak Night Sisters in the back, and oh, it looks like I did actually keep Ewoks on offense. I don't remember what I put on defense then, probably something awful, but that's okay, because I had Ewoks available, and Ewoks into either of these teams is going to be good. Unfortunately, I didn't really have any other really great teams available, so I was looking at my Rex. He's Gear 8. Like, what can we do here? Like, what kind of weird team can I use to beat these awful rebels in the back? And so, I have just a hodgepodge, just a bunch of group. Gear 8 dudes, Gear 7 in some cases. I don't know, it looks like they're all Gear 8. Oh, 9 on the Executioner, nice. So I just decided that if I could maybe even just like two-shot this squad or something, that would be great. This is really just a battle of futility. People are just kind of flailing at each other. No one's actually any good here, so we're just kind of flailing. But fortunately, I did have probably way faster mods than my opponent did. This account has actually some pretty fantastic mods overall for how long I've been playing on it. Compared to my main account, how long it took me to get good mods on my main, it's a pretty good account. So as it stood, I was able to take out most of this squad at least. At this point, I figured I would for sure be able to at least take them down slowly. Getting 51 banners is not the ideal here, but being able to get the win on the first hit is great. And now I have Ewoks available to take out Night Sisters, which Ewoks are a pretty legitimate counter to Night Sisters. If you have really high gear Ewoks, you can beat really high gear Phoenix, or you can beat Phoenix, but you can also beat Night Sisters. Ewoks are just a really versatile squad, honestly. Like, I'm seriously considering getting all of my Ewoks on this account up to higher than just gear 12. Like, getting gear 13 and some relic levels would potentially be a really surprising team to have at any level, and being able to just kind of I don't know, use them to be able to counter some weird meta teams would be really nice. And I already have them up to gear 11. I don't have a ton of teams that I can use at my disposal, so the argument for building a different team, a newer team, is there just because I need more teams as opposed to like really strong teams. So in the final, I was able to win. My opponent wasn't able to break any of my teams that were remaining. They were able to beat that Hodgepodge Kira Nest team that I have in the front that I had said that were Ewoks instead. And then I had put Phoenix in the back zone behind them. So that was kind of a fail on my end. I probably should have just, I don't know, kept Phoenix and put something bad in the back. So as it stood, I was the only person in Kyber in my entire group, and I won, and it's pretty cool. I think I ended up just under 500th place for my division. It was like 450th, so pretty good. I got a paltry amount of Grand Arena currency, which is already used up as of like 3 days after the end of the championship, and I don't really know what I bought with it, so I can't say that was the reason that it was worthwhile, but I did make Kyber again. So I got Kyber on this account 2 times in a row. I've gotten Kyber 2 times in a row on my main account. Things are going pretty swimmingly. So stay tuned, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I'm excited to go into the next championships with both of my accounts. I hope this was instructive and informative, and if you didn't like it, I hope you didn't watch it. Which means I'm not actually addressing you right now. So anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching, and remember that in all things, Xaereth prevails.